Hello, this is Organization with Olu. Today we're going to do chapter 4, Human Resources. So stick around. I think you're going to like what I've got for you. Okay, we're going to go straight on to human resources. Okay, let me just put myself over here, get myself out of the way. This is chapter 4 in our revision. Okay, chapter 4 in our revision, we're going to go through human resources. So let's start off with human resources. Initially, the first thing we need to know about is the organizational structure. What does that mean? The definition of organizational structure is how a business is organized in terms of communication and decision making. For example, you could have a shop worker, then next stage could be a supervisor, the next stage could be a manager, then the next stage could be a general manager, and then those are the stages, okay? And in terms of communication and decision making, again, if there's a problem with it's the shop worker, they will go to the supervisor. Then the supervisor will go to the manager. That's the different levels of communication, and that's how it's organized. That's the structure, the hierarchical structure. Okay. It also identifies specific job roles and who reports to whom. As I've said, you've got the shop worker reporting to the supervisor reporting to the manager, and so on and so forth until you get to the very top. Okay. Now, so that's the kind of thing you need to understand in terms of the organizational structure. Some of the key terms in organizational structure are things like span of control, delegation, and chain of command. We'll talk about this very soon. Okay, so the definition of span of control, that's the number of employees an individual is directly responsible for. The number of employees an employee is responsible for. Okay, now if you have a wide span of control, that means you are in control or in charge of a large number of employees. If you have a narrow span of control, it means you're probably in charge of a few employees. Okay, so span of control is just like your span. How wide is your span? If your span is really wide, it means you're in charge of a number of employees. Okay. Chain of command shows the line of authority within the business. Remember my example of a floor worker, let's say the floor worker, supervisor, manager. Okay, so if there's a problem, the floor worker would then talk to the supervisor. Then the supervisor would then talk to the manager. That is the chain of command. That's the chain of command. The line it goes up. Then the manager would then talk maybe to the the district manager or whoever's above them, and that is exactly what you mean by the chain. Okay, the chain of command. That shows the line of authority in a business. Okay, and that's where communication passes. Delegation, which we talked about in my previous video, is the passing of responsibility or authority from one person to another. So normally it passes down from a manager or leader to an employee, okay, who is slightly lower. You delegate. Remember my last video? If you watched my last video, you need to go, it's chapter 3. We talked about delegation in chapter 3. So make sure you watch that, the chapter 3 revision. Okay, so let's move on with this. Other key things you need to know in this chapter are things like tool structures and what is meant by delayering. Okay, so let's talk about a tool structure. A tool structure has many layers. Just like I said, a great example of a tool structure is, for example, a school. A school has a tool structure. Remember, you have the teacher, then you have the head of department, then you have the head of faculty, then you have the maybe assistant head, then you have the deputy head, then you have the head. That's a tall structure. It has many layers. Okay, and long chains of command and narrow spans of control. Okay, so we talked about what a chain of command is, going up from all those from your teacher can go straight up to the head teacher, but goes through different levels. And then a narrow span of control, because at that you might be responsible for one or two people. Okay, unlike a flat structure which has very few layers and short chains of command. Okay, a flat structure, you could just be in charge of a lot of people. It could be like maybe like a garage, for example. You're the owner and you have lots of mechanics who you're responsible for, so they directly report to you. That's a good example of a flat structure. Okay, so you need to know these guys in terms of chapter 4 And delayering is removing some of the layers of the hierarchy, some of the layers. So this could help improve communication. How would that help improve communication? Maybe you have too many positions going up. Okay, by the time the messages get up or come down, the messages get diluted. By removing some of them, could actually benefit communication. Communication would be a lot easier. Okay. Next thing we need to know about centralization occurs when a small number of senior managers take important decisions. Good example of centralization is McDonald's. That's a great example of centralization, where all the decisions are taken at the central level and are then distributed, and all the franchises will have to follow, or the decision made at the central level, then all the franchises will have to follow what's made at the central level. A great example of decentralization. You need to know, guys, what the benefit of centralization is. Understand what the benefit is. Look at the case study. Make sure you understand what the benefits are in terms of centralization. Okay. All decisions are made at the top. Okay. Whereas if you look at something like decentralization, it allows employees working in all areas of the business to take decisions. One of the greatest examples is a school. The local council, is in charge of the school, but they allow individual schools to make decisions. How's that beneficial? Okay, so think about how that is beneficial. Okay, other important parts you need to know are things like recruitment, motivation, and training. When we're talking about human resources, you have to know about recruitment, motivation, and training. So let's think about let's think about recruitment in terms of external and internal recruitment. Why is it beneficial to externally recruit, or should we internally recruit? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Again, look at the case study and apply it to the business. What's the benefit of doing this? So look at the benefits of each method, apply to the case study, okay, and then you'll be fine, guys. Okay, then how do you go about recruiting? You need to do the process. You need to job analysis. In other words, you need to know there's a job. You need to find out what the job requires. Then you need to do a job description, person specification, and job advert. Okay, you need to do all that before you actually then recruit. So all that needs to be done. Okay, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done before you actually recruit somebody. Okay, so be familiar with all that. And again, what type of job? Is the person going to be full-time? Are they going to be part-time? Are they going to job share? Or are they going to have 0-hour contracts? Understand what 0-hour contracts is that there's no contractual agreement between yourself and the employer for them to give you particular hours or a certain number of hours. In other words, they will employ you when they need you. Think about agency staff. You only get employed when there's a need. Okay, so there's no contractual arrangement for you to get any number of hours when you have a 0-hour contract. Okay, so that's one way you can be employed. So be familiar with all those things. And let's think about motivation. How do you motivate? Very important part of HR. It's how do you motivate employees? Okay, think about financial and non-financial ways to motivate employees. Think about things like fringe benefits, for example. Such things as fringe benefits. Example of a fringe benefit is health insurance or a company car. That's a fringe benefit. So think about different ways you can motivate employees. Again, you have to base it on the case study. Okay. Then training employees is crucial. To train employees is very, very crucial. And you should know about types of training, such as on-the-job training, off-the-job training. Again, look at the benefits, disadvantages to the business. Consider the benefits and drawbacks of each training type. And training needs to be flexible and versatile, guys. We're living in a globalized environment and changing technology. If you don't know what that means, go back and go over my chapter 2 revision on influences of business. Very important that you understand that. Okay, so it's because of the globalized environment and changing technology. Training needs have to change all the time. Okay, you have to be flexible in your training needs. It might have to be trained on technology, trained to deal with different situations. So many things you need to do. So when you're thinking about training, it has to apply to the company, it has to be versatile, has to be flexible. Okay, so hopefully, guys, you understand what we've done here. Remember, please go over the 4 marker, 6 marker, 9 marker, and 12 marker. It's very, very important. Understand the content and you should be fine. Okay, so please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.